Welcome to Storytime with Texas Red. I'm Paul Halperin, also known as Texas Red, and I'm going to read you one of my original stories. The title of this story is Angie and Chateau, Vegas, 1983. I arrived in Las Vegas in mid-February 1983, leaving my wife and a trail of destruction behind in San Antonio, Texas. I checked into the original MGM Grand Hotel, where Frank Grant, my friend and former Sunrise Ski Resort boss, was the assistant general manager. Frank was slick and had more class in his little finger than most people I've ever known. My circumstances were very different than years ago in the mountains. Now I had money. I went straight to the casino cage, signed a $4,000 marker, scanned the casino, and found the hottest blackjack dealer on the floor, and went and sat down at her table with a stack of black chips. The name tag on her uniform said Angela. I started playing 3 hands at once for $300 a hand and sneaking little hits of coke from a vial under the table, under the illusion that the pit boss couldn't see what I was doing. As often happens in blackjack, in the blink of an eye, I lost almost all my money, and just as fast, playing 3 hands, I won $9,200 back. During the course of all this craziness at the blackjack table and a whole lot of fast talking, I managed to get the dealer's phone number, something that is unheard of and definitely not allowed on the casino floor. During all this action, I was repeatedly being paged over the house public address system for phone calls from my wife's representatives, demanding that I get my ass back to San Antonio immediately. At one point, Frank called me into his office to tell me that the chaos my wife and I had caused had succeeded in disrupting the entire MGM Grand Hotel. 2 days later, once again in his office, Frank politely apologized and said he had to ask me to leave his hotel. The hot blackjack dealer was Angela, or Angie, and I later learned that she'd been married to a guy from Milwaukee who had a serious criminal past and an Italian surname. Angie was 5'8", with a model's captivating looks and a Sports Illustrated swimsuit body. She had long, wavy, strawberry blonde hair and beautiful brown eyes. She was magazine sexy in her blackjack dealer's uniform. After her shift, we talked on the phone, and on her next day off, we started hanging out together, riding in the back of a white stretch Cadillac limo driven by an unflappable Vegas limo driver named Rick. We stayed in one of the numerous hotel rooms I had around Vegas under one of 6 pseudonyms: Carl Thompson, Santa Fe; Mark Fisher, El Paso; Paul Marks, P.O. Box 1568, Santa Fe; Charles Olson, San Antonio; the initial C. Olson, Denver; and Dr. Carl Fisher. The reason for the multiple rooms and names was to avoid being tracked by my wife and her lawyers and investigators from San Antonio. At one point, I even received a call from an investigator asking for details about my new Vegas girlfriend. Meanwhile, Angie and I drove around Vegas in the limo, drinking a cocktail of cognac and champagne, mixed with a little cocaine. Hence the drink we called the 3 C's: champagne, cognac, and cocaine. Angie always carried a light green, old-school 1950s-looking makeup case, one of those with a handle on the top. In the case was all manner of cocaine paraphernalia: grinders, vials, bags, spoons, and of course loose cocaine. To say the least, Angie was always prepared. My contribution to our stash was a stack of 24-karat gold Krugerrands I had, let's say, borrowed as I was leaving San Antonio. Just to explain, a Krugerrand is a 1-ounce South African gold coin, and at that time they were worth about $500 each. Now it's about $3,000. Whenever we needed money, we hit the gold exchange, and I sold some coins to buy drugs, booze, and gifts for Angie. When I needed a clean shirt, we just pulled the limo up in front of Neiman Marcus, and I'd run in, buy a shirt, and then change in the limo. We rode around in that white stretch so much that I developed a relationship with Rick the limo driver. And Angie started calling me Limo Paul. At one point, I was completely out of money. The only thing I could think of was to ask Rick for a $2,000 loan. He said he had never even considered doing anything like that with a client, but he loaned me the money and I paid him back, just as I had promised. Angie's favorite place in Vegas was Chateau Vegas, an old school bar and restaurant with top shelf booze and a fine dining menu. According to Angie, the Rat Pack hung out there, so you can imagine who owned the place. When we went to Chateau Vegas, we felt we were at home in that scene, but that was all in our minds. We drank cognac, ate escargot, and did coke at the table. One night, Angie borrowed her sister's prized possession, a nearly new green Porsche 914, a small, boxy, mid-engine model of Porsche. Angie picked me up in the Porsche at Caesar's Palace around 1 in the morning, and we went to Chateau Vegas. There was a long, narrow driveway along the side of the club that led to the parking lot in the back. An 8-foot-high concrete block wall separated the long driveway from the strip mall on the other side. We drove down the driveway into the parking lot and were greeted at the entrance to the club by 2 imposing men with slicked back hair and dark suits. We were ushered inside and seated at a corner booth. We'd been doing so many illegal things that we just felt totally at home in that environment. We both had cocaine, so we started doing coke at the table. We ordered our usual escargot and cognac, and we were off and running. Like so many other things in early spring of 1983, I don't know if we were doing all that debauchery because we actually liked it or simply because we enjoyed being so fucking outrageous. The night went on and we kept drinking and doing coke until we finally hit a point where we were just at our limit. We were beyond any kind of reasonable, rational thought, so we thought it just made sense to leave. We walked outside at about 4 or 5 in the morning, and though it was dark, the parking lot lights revealed an expanse of asphalt, slick with early morning dew. Angie got in the driver's seat of her sister's Porsche, and I sat in the passenger seat. We were both obviously fucked up, but we've been really close together all evening. Well, that changed in a cocaine-blind second when I said something that seriously pissed Angie off. Without saying another word, she threw the Porsche into first gear, popped the clutch, and floored it. It was a light sports car on slick pavement, and Angie was furious, with nothing on her mind but total destruction. We immediately went into a spin, heading toward the concrete block wall. Angie had no intention of trying to stop, and when we spun, with my side heading directly toward the wall, I knew we were in fucking deep shit. We crashed into the wall, took down about 20 linear feet of concrete block, and Angie's sister's Porsche was totaled. Upon impact, I jumped out of the car and yelled for Angie, "Get out." I'd watched too many action movies, and I thought the car would burst into flames. Well, it didn't explode, and miraculously, we weren't injured. We were standing in the middle of the parking lot, stunned and fucked up, next to a smashed sports car, when a group of employees in suits came rushing out the back door after hearing the violent crash. After assessing that we were alive and hearing my coked-up explanation of what happened, their attention turned to the big hole in their wall. All I could do was tell them I was Dr. Carl Fisher and I'd take care of all the repairs. There was a lot of fast talking, and I said I was staying at Caesar's and I'd come back the next afternoon with the cash. For reasons that I will never know, they believed me, agreed, and Angie and I got in a taxi and left the club. There was no talking in that cab, and I got out at Caesar's. I got a few hours sleep at Caesar's, got out of bed and thought, okay, it's showtime. I took a shower and put on my, quote, impersonate a doctor and pay for a damaged wall at an underworld nightclub wardrobe. It was jeans, my blue anteater boots from Cutter Bill's in Dallas, a 50s style, pink and charcoal short-sleeved rayon shirt, a red Indian fabric scarf, and mirror sunglasses with red and black frames. I went down to the bar, sucked a triple Bloody Mary through 3 cocktail straws, and walked out the front door. Rick picked me up in front of Caesars in the white stretch, and we drove to Chateau, Vegas. Upon arriving at the scene of the accident in the parking lot in the blazing sunlight, we were greeted by the owner of a construction company and a group of serious-looking big guys from Chateau, Vegas. As everyone knows, Vegas is so outrageous that it's hard to make an impression, but it appeared that this group was taken aback by the big white limo and my ridiculous fucking wardrobe. I introduced myself as Dr. Carl Fisher, the guy who was responsible for the damage. The contractor said his estimate to repair the huge hole in the wall was $700, and the club guys were satisfied with his plan. I thanked him for his quick response, pulled out a handful of folded bills, counted out 7 100s, handed them to him, and he wrote me out a receipt. The deal was done, and everyone went home happy.